Trust me. I'll bet many of you have probably seen the original county agent by Norman Rockwell. I use this photo quite a bit in Indiana because this guy right here, the county agent, his name is Harold Rippey, and he worked in Jay County, Indiana. And when Norman Rockwell wanted to figure out what extension folks did for a living, the kind of work they did, he went to Indiana and he went to Jay County and he followed Harold Rippey around for 2 weeks. And if you go back and look at the old original Life article where this photo and the story was published, what Norman Rockwell said was, I learned so much from Harold Rippey. I went on farm visits. I found out what farmers were doing, what they were worried about, what they were working on. He said, we went to town. We went to the coffee shop. He said, we went from 7 a.m. till 7 p.m. and I'm going home now. Norman Rockwell said, I'm going home now because I'm tired. And I thought that was interesting because clearly the work of the county agent back in 1946 when this painting was done was incredibly hard work. In fact, back in those days, if you go back and look at the logs of extension agents back in those days, they were making 1,000 farm visits a year. They spent a lot of time on people's farms working one-on-one. And those were days when it was really important. We were just coming off the Second World War, producing a lot of food to support the troops and those kinds of things, right on the cusp of a new age in extension around technology and the development and success of technology. There's a lot of things about this painting that are really special. The county agent, Harold Rippey, in this case, working with the young girl with her dairy heifer there, and she's got her 4-H logbook right there, so she's capturing information that is being shared by Mr. Rippey, and the family looking on. The family's all interested. The brothers, sisters, mom, granddad, they're all interested. And another interesting thing about this painting is the diversity of livestock. That doesn't happen very much anymore, does it? So, this painting makes us nostalgic about not only the 1940s, but maybe a little bit about extension and the way extension used to be. What I can tell you is there's some elements of this painting that still exist today. Hopefully the one-on-one relationships, the networks that we develop in extension, but there's some things that have changed very dramatically, and I'm going to talk about just a few of those things here for a few minutes, and then I'm going to talk a little bit about how we do our work these days in extension, and then I'm going to talk just a little bit about water as kind of the poster child for a lot of the extension work that we do. And then I'm going to wrap up here in a little bit, talking just a little bit about, I hate to even use the D word, the drought, and the challenge that we face going into this year and what extension's role might be. So, 1953. The tools of the trade of the county agent. Some of us probably recognize some of that stuff. And
I was one.
You were one. You recognize it? Was that your pickup, Dale?
I had a 1950.
Okay, all right. Yeah, well, you were a little behind the time, but that's okay. That's all right. But back in the day, our extension agents, our county agents, had an associate degree. A few of them had bachelor's degrees. Maybe they drove a pickup. I don't know if it was as nice looking as that pickup, but they had a logbook where they kept lots of information about their contacts. They had a camera. In fact, extension agents took a lot of photos back in the days, and it's fun to go through those records and see what was there. They might have had a slide rule, whatever that thing is. Those are in antique shops now. They used fact sheets to share information. They probably had a desktop telephone. And that was a pretty modern invention back in the day. They did a lot of farm visits and they did a lot of demonstration projects, but a whole lot of the work that we did back then was one-on-one. Well, guess what? Things have changed. And you know this. Certainly technology has just exploded. When you think about all the kinds of technology we can use and access and so on. And knowledge has changed incredibly as well. And there's more knowledge than we can ever get our arms around. And this is one of the challenges for extension these days. The old model of the county agent was a person who knew a little bit about a lot of things, and back in the day, that was valuable.
Well, if Extension's going to be that person today, we've just been replaced by Google or Wikipedia or Yahoo or those kinds of online resources. So what we need to think about in Extension is how do we be really good and probably fewer things? Because we need to be really good if we're going to provide good, high-quality research information to our clientele. So not only the amount of information and knowledge, but the complexity of that information and knowledge has changed dramatically. Our communication tools and methods have changed dramatically. How many of you have an iPhone or a Droid or something like that? It's pervasive in our society. One thing I will give students on East Campus credit. I spent 5 years at Purdue University. Everybody, all the students walk around that campus with their earphones on, they're plugged in, they're bopping around having a good time. When I walk across East Campus today, excuse me, one of the things I really enjoy is they're not all plugged in, and every once in a while, they'll say hello. And I'm like, wow, this is really nice. So, students. But the other thing is the decision making that our clientele are involved in today, many of you, is absolutely unbelievable. The tools that you have at your fingertips, all the internet resources and all those kinds of things, the speed at which decisions are being made today, and also the consequences of the decisions that are being made today. You know, a square mile of corn is worth $1.4 million. A 10% error is just a mere $140,000. Oh my gosh. The consequences of the decisions we make today are unbelievable. And so that's a key piece going forward. So how about the 2013 tools of the trade? And you'll notice the first thing is we don't call them county agents anymore. We call them extension educators. And we did that purposely because we want our folks to be in the education business. This is about, Extension today is about knowledge that's transformed, research information that's transformed into tools and products that real people can actually use. And if we do it well, it's delivered just in time when they need it. And people learn things, and they have the confidence to make changes that are appropriate for their operation or their situation, whatever it might be. So educator is a much different description of what we're talking about. And so now today, all of our educators have a master's degree, quite a few of them have a PhD. They use social media like Facebook, Twitter, LinkedIn, and things like that. They use websites. They use all kinds of decision support tools, computers, iPads, digital cameras, iPhones, Android apps. We've got about 10 apps. If you haven't visited UNL Extension lately, we have about 10 apps that we've got out there. I encourage you to look at those. We use blogs, networks. We do a lot more with forecasting and trying to look forward. I feel pretty good about that most days until that drought that hit us last summer. We didn't forecast that very well. And that's something we need to continue to work on. We're using modern and rapid diagnostic tools, video conferencing, webinars to do our work, workshops and conferences, and something that hasn't changed, there we go, is this idea that we're still doing a lot of applied research, demonstration research. In fact, if anything, that's coming back more important than ever. You know, with the tools that farmers have at their fingertips, and I've told people, Nebraska could be a 93-county experiment station. Now, what would that be like if we could gather that kind of information using the tools that we have at our fingertips? And so you see some of those around the edge of the page there. I want to talk about Jenny Reeves for just a minute, an extension educator in Clay County. And Jenny's one of our all-stars. Not only is she incredibly bright and well-informed and inquisitive, doing lots of on-farm demonstration research work and those kinds of things, but look at this. Jenny is one of our main drivers on Crop Watch, one of our main websites for people who produce crops. And from 2012, she helped us generate 165,000 visitors. 165,000 people visited just Crop Watch. And we have lots of websites, but this is a key one. Those visitors represented 176 countries, and they generated almost 500,000 page views. So they spent a lot of time on the Crop Watch website. And that's exciting because it means that people now are using these kind of resources more and more than ever before and finding information there. And especially just-in-time information that's critical and timely to help people make decisions. So that's one piece. And websites have been around for a little while. And here's the other thing that Jenny Reese does. She does blogs, she does Twitter, she does Facebook, she does LinkedIn. I don't even know how to use half that stuff. That's why we hire young people who understand this. In December alone, on her Twitter account, this is one person, one of 150 extension educators scattered across Nebraska. December alone, she did 21 tweets, okay, so 21 times she sent out information. And those 21 tweets reached almost 4,000 people. Okay, now you think about it. Back in the day, we do a workshop or a conference and 100 people show up. When Jenny sends out information, 4,000 people are listening. And those 4,000 people then multiply that to almost 9,000 impressions. And so this is the way technology can really help us get information out quickly, timely, in ways that are relevant to our clientele. So now I want to shift gears and talk a little bit about what extension looks like today. And extension is not our grandparents' cooperative extension system. In fact, what we use, the phrase we use today is UNL Extension. We've shortened that up. And it's not that we're not cooperative, we still are. And it's not that we're not a system, we still are. But what we do is extend knowledge. So that's why we use UNL Extension. A couple of things that are really important here. The first one is we have to be relevant. If we're not working on things that are important to you and the people that you work with and the people in the state of Nebraska and beyond, then we're not relevant. If we don't matter, we don't matter. And so one of the things I really focus on is making sure people are thinking about current and evolving needs. What's going on? What do we need to pay attention to? And where can we contribute? Secondly, we need to deliver extremely high quality extension educational programs. Programs that are research-based. We want people to know that if they come to Extension, they're going to get unbiased research-based information. We're going to try and create effective learning venues, and this one has changed dramatically over the years. Back in the day, there was something called the expert model. And the idea of the expert model was that we in Extension knew stuff, we were experts, and y'all didn't. Well, guess what? That was faulty right from the start, right? That didn't make sense right from the start. And I tell this story because some of you, I know Irvin Dale have heard this story because I told it about 2 months ago. But when I was working in the Panhandle, we had a pretty top sugar beet team, people that did research and extension work in sugar beets. And in fact, we had our ducks in a row so well, we thought, all right, now's the time. We're going to challenge these sugar beet growers. And so we're going to grow a strip of sugar beets our way on their farm. And they're going to grow a strip of sugar beets their way on their farm. And at the end of the season, we'll show them how much better we are at growing sugar beets than they are. And so at the end of the season, we harvested our sugar beets. And guess what? We beat 2 out of 10 farmers. 2 out of 10 farmers. Well, that's kind of a come-up-ance lesson. It kind of says, you might know a lot of stuff, but what happens in the real world is what happens in the real world. And so let's get off this high horse of being experts and know-it-all and that kind of model, and say, let's just be really honest here. If we work together with farmers who know their land, their space better than anyone else, and the conditions and all that better than anyone else, and we bring new ideas that may or may not make sense in that environment, together we can figure out how to do something special. And so we talk about co-discovery now rather than kind of a one-way street, and working together to try and solve problems. A lot more just-in-time information, really important in this day and age. And then what's really important to us is impact. In other words, what's different as a result of our efforts? What's different? If nothing's different, then nothing's different, so what? But if in fact we've got good information delivered when it needs to be delivered in ways that people can learn and gain confidence, then just maybe we will develop some kind of impact as a result of that. And so that's the standard that we hold ourselves to in Extension. I'm not going to go through the whole detail of this, but I just wanted to share with you kind of the way we think about doing extension work today. Okay? And we use this pyramid to do it as a planning tool to help us think about the kind of work that we're going to do
And over here on the left, it talks about depth of programming or degree of impact. And the idea is that on the low part of the pyramid, level 1 down here, we don't necessarily generate a lot of impact, a lot of difference, and I'll explain that in a minute. But when we get up to the peak, the pinnacle, that's when we're doing the kind of work that really makes a difference. And so here's an example of what these levels might look like. Level 1 is where we might do a lot of media work. And nothing against the media. We have very good friends in the media. But you know, in some cases, when we put things out on the media, people learn, have a new idea or whatever, but they don't necessarily get the depth of knowledge they need to really make those hard decisions that need to be made. So we just kind of put it out there. As you go up the pyramid, level 2, really more about awareness of information. Level 3, more depth of content. So we might do short courses or things like that. But level 4 is where we really engage people with in-depth knowledge, create a learning experience that allows them to gain knowledge, the kind of knowledge, and discern what knowledge really works for them, and then make choices about what they're really going to do. We want to spend more time at the peak of that pyramid. That's where the action is. That's where we can get things done. And yes, we're going to use our friends in the media. We're going to ask our friends in the media to help us get the word out so people know about this stuff and can choose to be engaged. But the point is, we think about this. We think about what kinds of things can we do that will really make a difference and what kinds of things maybe we shouldn't do. Okay. This was a decision that was made about 4 or 5 years ago. And that was to say that INR and UNL Extension were going to be really, really good at fewer things. Okay? And in fact, we're going to do our best in these 6 areas to be world class. And I hope you want a university, I hope you want an extension service that's going to do this kind of stuff at a world class level. So beef is big in this state, beef is one of those. Children and youth is big in this state, that's where the 4-H program fits. Big, important. Crops for the future, talking about corn and soybeans, but we're also talking about other crops, maybe new innovative crops. Entrepreneurship as an opportunity. Food, nutrition, and health in our society. And water and the environment. And so we're going to try and be really, really good at those 6 areas. Now that doesn't mean we're not going to do other areas. We are, okay? But those are the areas we're going to try to be really, really good. So we're going to hire people that are going to work in these areas. We're going to pursue grants to support people that are working in these areas. We're just going to try and be the best we can possibly be. So now let me give you some examples of maybe what modern extension work might look like. And this is one that we're particularly proud of. Swat Ermach in our Biological Systems Engineering department is doing this work. He created about 7 years ago the Nebraska Agricultural Water Management Network. Okay? And his idea was that farmers could manage their water through their irrigation systems better than perhaps they were in the past. And that we were going to work with farmers to install ET gauges and soil water sensors to better manage irrigation. This program has had a huge partnership with the NRDs. In fact, 18 of the NRDs have partnered with SWAT and his team to deliver this. They started out in 2005 with 18 producers, and in 2012 we had over 800 producers that were part of this program that were using this technology with better support tools that SWAT had developed early when he got here about 10 years ago. Better support tools to figure out how to do irrigation a little bit different. The farmers that are using this technology report a savings of 2 inches plus per acre of irrigation water application, along with associated pumping costs. Now, in Nebraska, 2 inches is a lot of water, and that makes a difference. And we help, working with farmers, we help people figure that out. And so that's an example of some of the work that we've done. Here's another example. Some of you may know Bob Klein out at the West Central Research and Extension Center. And you know, Bob is class act, right? I mean, if you want to know about production agriculture, especially dryland farming, rain-fed farming, Bob is a great resource for us. And we have this new water lab out at Brule that was acquired about 6 years ago, and a nice resource. And one of the things that Bob has been working with under these circumstances, rain-fed agriculture in rural Nebraska, low rainfall area, right, is something called skip row corn. And the idea is that you only plant every other row, or leave one blank and plant two, and then skip another row. And you might say, why would you want to skip rows? That's lost corn production, right? Well, what happens is if you control the weeds between the rows, and then as that corn plant begins to grow and the roots extend across, the taller the corn plant gets, the longer the roots extend, and they're extending into new moisture, right? And so because of that, last year in a drought, that corn produced those kind of ears, 72 bushels per acre. Now, is that the only solution that's out there? No. But that's a pretty interesting one, and kind of simple, actually, skipping rows, interesting. Okay, so that's one. So these are the kind of work that we're doing now, kind of in this water area. Crop production clinics, we just finished those, 6 of them across Nebraska. You can see the topics there. Water Optimizer is a computer-based decision support tool that help people manage their water. Programs focused on center pivots, 3 of those. And then, of course, this Central Plains Irrigation Conference. It flips between Kansas and Nebraska, but this year it happens to be in Kearney and timed extremely well relative to our needs this year, potentially going into an extended drought. We work with communities. We realize a lot of the water use comes through communities, and so we need to pay attention to that. And so people like John Fetch in Omaha, doing irrigation audits. You can see the little cups there to figure out just how much water is actually being applied in that landscape. Doing landscape renovation to help reduce the amount of bluegrass in lawns. And working with water conservation demo sites to try to do a better job of conserving water in an urban landscape. And these things, people are interested in this. A lot of people across Nebraska understand that we're in a drought and we have limited water resources, so these are important things. These are the kinds of things that John and his crew are going to be doing this year, the water conservation demo sites, using local media, working with municipal water systems, etc. And so we're engaged in our urban centers as well. Our drought resources, and we have a lot of them here. I mentioned Crop Watch earlier, but certainly droughtresources.unl.edu is one place you can go to get a lot of drought information. But there's a lot of information here, and one of the really cool things about a lot of these information sources is that there's proactive information as well as kind of the reactive, responsive stuff. We're really trying to help people think about how do you manage rangeland when you do have good moisture, so you're ready for when it gets dry. Because guess what? In Nebraska, sometimes it's going to get dry. It's just part of the deal. All right, let's talk about this darn drought for just a little bit. I shared this map a couple of weeks ago, and I put a disclaimer on it and said some of the images you're about to see are not for those that have a queasy stomach, because this is ugly. This is really a challenge, and certainly, and before I go there, one of the incredible tools that we have in Nebraska is the High Plains Climate Change Research Center that feeds information to the National Drought Mitigation Center. And people across this United States use our Drought Mitigation Center information to make management decisions and to try to be proactive about the way we deal with drought. So this darn drought, and this is the forecast for January through March of 2013. So this is current. And it doesn't look any better, does it? In fact, it looks really, really bleak. I've spoken with our climatologists and said, so, what does this mean? And they said, if you look out over the next 12 months, okay, this is where it gets really squeamish. But if you look out over the next 12 months, there are no weather patterns on the horizon that would suggest it's going to get any wetter, any drier. And I don't know how it could get any drier, but certainly this doesn't bode well for our future. And so one of the things that we're doing in Extension is a very proactive approach to try and help people get ready for what could be another year of persistent drought. Now maybe we'll get lucky. I mean, we lived in the Panhandle when I was out there for 12 years. We lived from one rain to the next. Because Frank, if it rained when you needed it, it didn't matter what happened the rest of the time, right? It was really all about timing as much as anything. And
Exactly.
sometimes you get lucky. But this doesn't look good. And The other part of what's really concerning about this map is that, there have been times in our history where we've had drought centered over Nebraska, but it's been good in other places like Kansas, Oklahoma, Texas. Well, guess what? It's been bad in Kansas, Oklahoma, Texas for 3 years. Now we just kind of joined late in the game, but we don't have options for cows like we would have in other circumstances. And so this is a real challenge going forward. I would tell you that I left Indiana about 4 months ago. They had a bad drought this summer, and now they're out of it. Maybe I need to leave Nebraska. I don't know. That was a bad joke. So anyway, some of the things that we're doing relative to drought and a lot of workshops and face-to-face programs. We've ramped up our extension publications, a lot more web resources, webinars, using television, radio, and print media. But we're still doing a lot of individual consultations, because once people get a sense of what this is and how to deal with it, it's that one-on-one that really helps people make decisions about what needs to happen next. In fact, if anything, this year, and this is what's so different from this year compared to last year. Last year, only about 30% of this state was minorly dry. The rest of the state was pretty wet, and we had good soil moisture. And guess what? On January 1st of 2013, 100% of the state is in drought conditions, and 75% of the state is in extreme drought conditions. So we don't have the options that we've had in years past. And a big thing that we're working with farmers and ranchers on is adaptive management. How do you adapt on the fly, making the decisions you need to make, because maybe you get that timely rain. What's going to happen when it's time to turn cows out and the grass is just starting to green up? Are you going to do it? Are you going to figure out how to hold off a little bit and give that grass a chance to respond? Our crops water team has been very active. In fact, since May of 2012, we've put out 201 drought-related publications on this website. So we've been very active putting those things out here and focusing on things like this water optimizer, decision support tool, our latest seeding rate research. That's one of the things we can do in a drought or dry conditions is change our seeding rate, looking at deficit irrigation strategies, and then helping people with the economic analysis of what this means. We've had a couple of just fantastic years in agriculture. The last thing we need is to be dealing with this, but we don't have a choice, right? So what does that mean economically for our operations, especially some of these ranching operations who had it really bad last year, depopulated in a lot of cases. We don't get rain this year. This summer is going to be pretty tough on our ranchers. These are some of the things, we're doing around the beef cattle industry. A lot of events, a lot of things that are going on, focusing on feeding and nutrition, range pasture and forages, economics and overarching issues. And this is a pretty impressive list here. And I didn't have anything to do with this, but this is our beef team and the kind of work they're doing. And we started on January 17th, and this was the optimistic one. If the drought ends, what are we going to do? Okay. The rest of them, though, really are helping people think about what kinds of adaptive management decisions need to be made, what and when, to help us kind of walk through this drought and deal with it all the way through May 29th. One of the things that's really cool about this, most of these are webinars. You have to get on the internet and dial in. The first two were delivered by NET. So they were delivered statewide for anybody who wanted to bring up their NET channel. We're also working this year, especially with families and youth. As this drought possibly persists, families and children are going to be impacted like they have in other extended droughts. And so working with families on budgeting with less income, working with families and coping with drought, it doesn't just affect the person who's primarily responsible for the farm or the ranch. It impacts the entire family. And tough choices need to be made. We're working with youth in our 4-H program, educating youth about drought impacts, rural and urban, helping them understand, and educating youth about water conservation. And we think if we can help young people understand water conservation, that carries forward. And that's really important, because one of the things that we do when it gets dry, we really respond. We figure out how to manage. And when it gets wet again, we kind of forget. We want young people to understand that water conservation needs to be a way of life. But that's what we do going forward. We have this website, droughtresources.unl.edu, extremely active last year, a lot of hits, a lot of information there. So this includes everything, cattle, crop production, anybody and everybody that's impacted by this drought. A lot of good information there. And we're asking our partners to put this hot link on their website. And we've gotten good response from a lot of people. Elected officials, our partners in the commodity groups, and others, to put this hot link on their website so we can get the word out and more people can or be aware of what kind of resources are available. So this is where it kind of comes down to. And just as we think in closing, what does Extension look like today? Well, I hope I gave you a sense of the idea that it's a whole lot different than it was in 1953, a whole lot different. And because of that, we're holding ourselves to a different standard, and we want to be effective, and we want to be part of the solution around these tough issues that we face in this state. We're committed to advancing the knowledge and practice of Nebraskans. That's the bottom line for us, the impact, things that are different because of our work. We're committed to being a relevant and reliable source of research-based information. We will work together to solve problems and create opportunities. That's that co-discovery, co-learning idea. We'll work together. And when we deal with things like this darn drought, we'll be responsive, we'll be there. We'll help people figure out what to do so they can minimize the impact long-term on their operations. That's what Extension is about in the 21st century. It's an exciting place to work. It's a place that's faced with challenges and opportunities, and it's just great to be part of it, and especially here in Nebraska. So that's what I wanted to share with you today. Anybody have